Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Companion. And today, you guys, I have another interview coming off of let me see, Team Furia de Pantera is Brandon Caruso, who plays Animal. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I am doing amazing. How about yourself, sir?
I am doing a little bit better, a little under the weather. We've been talking, before the interview here, getting to know each other. But yes, I think actually speaking with you kind of lifted my spirits up a little bit. So I'm at least in better spirits. So. Um, first off, congrats on Cobra Kai. It was number one for a few weeks when it came out. When that dropped, what was the reception like from friends and family?
It was a little crazy actually, because not only did I get a bunch of texts, like, from people that I haven't heard from in a very long time, I had also uh, uh, basically my following went up a little bit. And then we did this shortly after. We did this, what really skyrocketed everything. We did this short video with Liam, and he's on social media. He has tons of Cobra Kai like content that he does. And, we did like a kicking challenge with Daniel, like Vlad, that plays Vlad, 6'6". Sung Ho, he plays, I believe, Chung Yi in on the Cobra Kai team. And myself, of course, and we did like a kicking challenge, and then we posted it, and it was a collab. And from there, I'd gotten like all this. We'd all gotten this import of messages, extra like more following, and it's pretty cool to have our names mentioned out there, to say the
Yeah,
least.
yes. So the fan reception's been, yeah. I think I saw that video you're talking about. Was Alec also part of that? The kicking?
Alec, yes,
T
he was
is
there
it
as
Tillet
well.
or yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
he
So
is there. He was also
that
there.
that's so cool that you guys a lot of you guys know each other, and I know that Alec and Sung Ho came from Seattle together, so they have a little bit of history there. Well, let's talk. Speaking of history, I couldn't find anything on you. I found very little on you, so not a lot of the personal stuff out there, but if you're willing to share, I understand there is a story that many are not privy to. But yeah, if you can just maybe start taking us back, what was it like for a young Brandon? What were the things were you into? Because it does seem like you've been doing martial arts for a really long time.
Yeah, that's right. You could say that for sure. Well, it started off the fire ignited. What got me into the martial arts, actually, I first was playing, I had played this video game. It's called Street Fighter, right? Specifically EX3, but like the point is, we played this, I played this game and I seen them do all this crazy stuff like kicks, jumping high in the air, throwing uppercuts and fireballs and all that. And I was like, I want to learn how to do that. And then, I was like, wow, that sounds awesome. And then they're like, yeah, they're doing karate. They didn't know. It's just as a fighting game. But I was like, oh, I want to do that. And then my mother was like, well, you should watch this movie. He's like the best martial artist of all time is Bruce Lee. So she didn't even remember his name at the time, but she ended up having a movie. It was Fist of Fury, the first one that I watched, and the original title of that is actually is Fist of Fury, but they changed it to the Chinese Connection, and not to be confused with the movie that came right before it. So I saw that, and then I saw Enter the Dragon, and I was hooked. I was like, and then I wanted to learn the nunchucks, all of that stuff. So for the longest time, as I'm about 6 years old, 7 years old, I like really wanted to do martial arts. Growing up, though, couldn't afford it right away, actually. So I would literally go outside. Like I even made my own nunchucks out of a broomstick. I looked up on YouTube how to do it. This was early YouTube, 2006, 2007. I cut a broomstick. We didn't even have a drill. I went to my neighbor's house. He's sitting there. I said, "Hey, can you drill these holes into this stick?" And I would put it together, and I had nunchucks. Like that's what I did, and I was just like spinning them around. And then eventually, I believe by the time I was 11, we were able to finally. I was able to finally start martial arts formally. And in between those years, I had seen people do all these flips. tricking, martial arts. I didn't know it was even tricking at the time. And I would go on my Walmart trampoline every day and start trying to do these flips, back flips, and I would start to learn how to trick. And then as I started to uh, finally go to a martial arts school, it was Tang Sudo, which, fun fact, Cobra Kai's original inspiration is Tang Sudo, which is derived from Shotokan for the most part. And then even that comes into Taekwondo and all that. So it's pretty interesting to see how that goes. So I started in then. And then when it comes to the Karate Kid, before I start karate, so I'm gonna go back just a little bit, sorry.
Okay.
After I saw Enter the Dragon, I was like, yes, I wanted to be like just like that in the movies, martial arts. Then one day my dad was visiting us. We were in Walmart. He's like, "Hey, the Karate Kid." It was the DVD, not VHS, actually the DVD. So this is where I'm in the mid 2000s, right? So basically, we get this. I watched the movie and I see this kid like go through all this like trouble, and I'm like, wow. And then I see him in the tournament come out victorious, and I'm like, when I saw that movie, I was like, okay, now not only am I going to be a martial artist, but I'm also going to be a champion in the tournament just like that. So that played a heavy imprint in my life since then. So I became a fan since then, and then wanted to see the second movie, and there was a third movie, and then there was a fourth movie. We don't need to talk about the fourth movie, but or
Yeah,
the third
yeah,
movie.
sure.
But then I started doing martial arts and like formally in 2010. And after a few months, guess what movie comes out in the summer of that year? Jaden
The
Smith,
remake. Yep.
the remake, which I believe is internationally called the Kung Fu Kid, if I'm not mistaken.
Kung Fu Kid or Kung Fu Dream. Like I think it just kind of depends where you get the source from, but I've heard of yeah, different titles.
Something. Yes, and it's really more accurate, which I get. I just remember watching it and I actually loved it. Like we watched in my karate school that I was at. We all went on a day in the summer to go to the theater and watch it together. And then as soon as we got out the theater, everybody was like, "Hey, you can't do all the," because I would be known for doing flips like after class and all this stuff. And I was like, "Yeah, I could do that. I could do that kick." So then I do a kick, and then one of the instructors was like, yeah, it looks like the kick to me is basically a gainer switch. Of course, he did it on the wire, and it looks like crazy, crazy. But I was like, I did it, and and they were like, what? And it kind of, was pretty cool, to say the least. So
How
it's a big inspiration in my life, to say that.
it sounds like it. I mean, I don't know how many other people have ever said they've seen all four movies of the original Karate Kid plus the remake. It's usually like one and two or just one in the remake, but yeah, all four, five rather. The kick that you're talking about, is that the one that kind of looks like a Guile flash kick, from Street Fighter? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
That's kind of wild.
just like a lot like a go.
Who was your guy on Street Fighter? You mentioned you played the games, but like who was the guy you like to
It was
play?
originally it mostly Ryu for the most part for most of my life until later on. I mean, I would play all the characters actually, but eventually I kind of started gearing more towards Ken later on in my like as a younger adult. I was like, I think I like Ken more now because he's more flashy, faster movement. Um, and I used to have the longer hair and all that, so I was like, and now I just yeah, it's one of those two, or any of the Shoto characters, Akuma. Um, those aren't usually my favorites, but Guile was cool too. I mean, and Charlie Nash, just he's like Guile.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, his
yeah,
buddy. Yeah, I don't know. Did you see any of the movies? There was what,
all of
two of
them.
them? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All
Okay.
no, the one in the '90s I saw as a kid, I just accepted it, but it wasn't really like a good Street Fighter movie. And then there was Legend of
Right.
Chun-Li, which was horrible. The
Yes.
only movie I say is worse than the. I don't hope you don't use everything in the interview. Okay,
I
good.
do.
Because that movie was like it angered me. And I even saw Dragon Ball Evolution, which I also was horrible. But I was more angry because Street Fighter's more like hits more at home. So that
I,
was
I
so disappointing. And
I
then there was
think
an independent
because
film later on that was actually good.
which one?
Assassin's Fist. Like it was
Oh,
a
okay. Oh,
low
right.
budget. You
Yeah,
saw it?
I saw a short or clips. Like I haven't seen the entire movie because I think the movie's kind of long, if I'm not
It's
mistaken. Because
long
they broke it up in different sequences, right? Like episodes or something like that. And because
originally, yeah.
that was around the time they were also doing Mortal Kombat, where it
Mhm.
was kind of like a more gritty, grounded take. But Street Fighter, I think the Legend of Chun-Li, I think where that went wrong was they tried to make it so unlike the video game and make it real world. And I think people were just like, what is this? Like all you guys did really was take the names of these characters. So
Agreed. Agreed.
yeah. So
The
so
anime is pretty good, but yeah.
so it was Bruce Lee where you got the inspiration for the Chucks because you mentioned you make Chucks. I've seen some of your work too, like those really colorful ones that you have on your Instagram.
Oh, yes, that's right. I started making because when I started competing, I started doing the extreme stuff, and then I started, doing all that, and I started making my own extreme checks. It's yeah, they're you wrap them in this like any kind of like color changing or chrome, and it's very shiny and it's very visible, especially when you start to move them like crazy. And of course, in the circuit, I started watching people compete, and that was another inspiration as well. So
Yeah.
that's yes, nunchucks. Yes, I actually started making chucks and even selling them at one point just to people that I knew. I don't do it anymore. I don't have time anymore. But you know, yes, I started to be proficient. That's what I'm known for is nunchucks, double chucks
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah. So you started formally training. I think you said 2011,
10, 2010.
2010. Okay, that's around the time. And so what are you doing in between? Because I understand you had an injury in 2015.
That's right. As I was doing martial arts, and sometimes it was there was periods where we had breaks and stuff, but in 2014 January, I had torn my ACL, my first ACL. I was on the left side. Uh, I tore that, and when I did that, I was like I couldn't trick for a while, and then during that time is when I started in my martial art, career. I was like I was doing fighting, weapons, and forms, and traditional and extreme, all of it. And then I just paused and I said, okay, I really want to focus on weapons and forms for now, like the extreme weapons and forms. And when I did that, my nunchuck level and my technique and my skills went through the roof compared to where they were before. So when I came back better and I was able to put them together. And after about 6 months of coming back, from after that surgery, I changed schools. This is actually really um, crazy. Where I started really meeting a lot of big people in the martial art world because I went from my first school to a school called Florida Sport Martial Arts, and that's a Taekwondo school, and they're heavily focused on the sport. And the main instructor there used to be Mark Canonizato. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's been
Yeah.
in stunts and this will come back full circle. By the time I went there, though, he was already in stunts, already doing stuff. He had even been in the first three seasons of Cobra Kai. And then his father owns that school, so it's all full circle. The head
Yeah.
instructor at the time there was Justin Ortiz.
Mm,
Jules and Justin Ortiz, right? And
yeah.
he was the head instructor there at the time. And we were all training, and he was coaching, giving us, him, Mr. William, that's the owner of the school. And then during that time, I'd been training there, and I was like, yeah, maybe I can get into stunts and film. Maybe I can actually get into this stuff. It would be cool. And then I tore the other ACL. Yes. And then I tore the other knee. And this is where I was out for longer because mentally, I'd kind of fallen, became very much in a more, very big shadow of myself, if that makes any sense, right? So I'd been off my game for a while, and, but then as I started to slowly come back, I then start to train and start to teach at Florida Sports and start to teach especially a lot of private lessons with a lot of other students. And during that time is when I started to have the fire reignite. And then I came back competing, and then I came back better than I ever was. And then I was like, okay, it's time for me to now pursue film. And during this time in 2021, in January, I get a message from Mark Canonizato, and he's like, "Hey, if you want to get into stunts, I can kind of show you the ropes. You want to come down here for a week, and I'll show you. We'll train. We'll train, and we'll show you some stuff." And we do. And from there, I learned so much. It was awesome. And he was on Cobra Kai at the time, and they were about to start season 4, and they were looking for people. And I said, "Hey, I mentioned your name, and you might be, in the running for like you might actually get a small role on something like within stunts." And at the time, I didn't know anything about stunts, about film. I was just brand new. And then it was a near miss. Because I had like completely dropped everything and said, "Listen, I'm going for it." And I it didn't work out, and it didn't things did not line up in that particular time. And of course, season 4, it was a shift in coordinators and stuff like that. So
Right.
it was different people, different mix of people, and I didn't know anybody. So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I really wanted to get in stunts now, and not just stunts, specifically this show, because this is the show that's connected to one of the most important movies of my childhood. Like, actually, it left such an imprint on me. I was like, I have to get on this show. And it felt like I was close. And I was like, okay, I need to make sure I really like dial in and like learn not just stunts, film, everything, like the things I need to learn. But I lived in Florida at the time, Orlando, Florida. And because I was in Florida, there's not much else there when it comes to really getting in the industry. It's either LA or Atlanta are the two biggest ones. And Atlanta was closer, and I already knew a lot of people there, and it happened to be what's the word? Just a little more open. It's a little more accessible in a way. It's hard to explain. Uh, but so I said, you know what? I'm going to I'm going to make the move at some one way or another. And during the time the 2021 when I came, back after visiting Mark in Atlanta. During this time in my life, I had also forgot to mention in 2020, uh, I go through some stuff like my mom passes away actually. So that took like a hard toll on me, and just a lot of other things, certain other relationships in my life have just been kind of like decimated in a lot of ways, not just that. So during this time, I was just like, I started to see the fire again. So then that was like, you know what? I'm getting in better shape. I'm going to learn the ins and outs, everything. So as I'm working in the dojo in Florida, I said, all right, I'm gonna make it work. So in 2022, fast forwarding, I go to Battle of Atlanta, one of the biggest tournaments in the NASCAR circuit, and it's in Atlanta. And
You
I
said
just go there to
2022 or is it 2021?
Oh, I competed in 2021, and then I
Okay.
went there 2022.
Ah,
But I didn't compete in 2022. I was there to support my student, and because at that point I'd already been moving on to stunt training and everything like that. So from then I said I'm gonna meet people, and I'm gonna find a way to to maybe land a job, even teaching at first, just to have something. So I did that, and um, from there I had uh, actually Justin Ortiz, believe it or not, had been he's like, all right, I'm gonna introduce you to someone. He introduces me to someone uh who owns some locations, the dojo. And they're amazing, amazing martial artists. And they interviewed me and they said, yeah, definitely. We know you want to be in stunts, but you know what? Um, that we really would be honored to. Well, actually, I was the one that was honored for them to have me. That's what I really mean to say. And I was very, blessed in that case. And yeah, I made the move right away. And I said, yep. And they said, yeah, when you're ready to start, it can be in a few months. It doesn't matter, no rush. 2 weeks. I came 2 weeks later, and then I'm there. So yes, that's when it all really started from there. That may be a long explanation. I don't know if you want to cut it up. It's a little
Yeah.
jumbled. Forgive
No,
me.
it's yeah, no, that's just your journey. Yeah, I mean, you've gone through quite a bit. You briefly mentioned the Battle of Atlanta in 2021. You competed in the over 18 men extreme weapons, and impressive stuff. I see why, maybe we'll get into the origin of the name animal, but like you are quite the animal when you're showcasing your skills. It's very impressive stuff. You for like the average viewer, I think they will see your character of animal and don't see the stuff that Brandon Caruso does. It's almost kind of like, how is this the same person? I do enjoy like watching like your videos as well. One of the things that stands out, I think you kind of it's you have some of the best like reactions to getting hit, kicked, whatever. Like
Oh,
yeah, it's the way how you commit, and sometimes they're even funny, and maybe they're not meant to be, but it could also be like the editing and stuff like that that makes me laugh. Like a couple of the examples that and still want you to talk about the extreme weapons competitions too, but your videos, the two that stick out for me is when I think I think this one you shared, but it's you, Jack, who's Alex's husband, for those that are who kind of know the names from listening to the podcast. These are all names that I have mentioned before. So Jack played Fan on the Thailand team. So Jack was in the video. Sung Ho, who plays Chun Hee from Cobra Kai, and you guys are walking into a dojo, and Alex is at the table, and so fight ensues. Gets a little bloody, but there's a point where you're like in a neck brace, and it cuts to you, and you're like the reaction that you have. I just thought it was so funny. Um, and your falls, man, they're just there's something about them. But the other one is when it's you, Jack, and Alex, and you guys are outside, maybe under a bridge or something, and she beats the both of you up, and then you fall. You know where I'm going with this. You fall and you roll, and you
that
kind of
was just
strike
being
this.
funny.
Yeah, you strike this pose as you are rolling away, and that's like all the comments. People are just like, "Why you put his hand to his chin like that?" And it's so funny, so hilarious.
Yeah, it was just me being funny. I actually got the inspiration from that. Actually, was from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
It's one of my favorite shows. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay, so there's an episode where Will's is on a date and he's like and they're bowling, right? And he like goes under the leg. He's like whoop, like throws the ball under his leg. He's just being goofy. And then this big guy comes up and he's like, why don't you ditch the go-kart and pull up to a stretched limo? And he's like, hey, Messi Snipes. He's like,
Okay, yeah.
you need to back up. And then he punches him and then he's like, dazed and he goes in a chair and he crosses his legs. And then he falls.
Yeah.
That's where I got the inspiration. I was like, because I had seen that like again recently, showed up in a short in a reel, and it was so funny. I was like, oh, that episode was hilarious. So I just did it there, and I was like, actually, now that I did that, do you think it'll be okay? And I was just like, yeah, they're gonna love it. And now everybody's like, what's wrong with him? Why did he do that?
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
no, yeah, I love that show. I take a lot of like not intentionally, but I feel many of my mannerisms or even my animated reactions kind of come from like years of watching stuff like that and Family Matters. But no, yeah, Fresh Prince was definitely something I've even considered starting like a separate podcast for, where I just go back and rewatch it as an adult now, because it was so influential as a kid to me. Um, but the nunchuck skills, like uh, you mentioned like your mom passed away in 2020, and then like this competition you did, like the following year. I I can only imagine what that's going like what you were going through. I lost my dad earlier this year myself, and so I know what I was going through and kind of like the lack of motivation and stuff like that. Um, can you share like your headspace and how were you able to kind of push yourself through to compete at that level? I mean, you came in third place. Like that's not nothing, like still
Thanks.
that's, you know,
Yeah. Well, first of all, my condolences to your dad.
thank you.
Yeah, I really, I yes, I feel you on that. And well, as it happened in January of 2020, the thing with my mother, like she used to take me to tournaments as a kid, especially like the local ones. And then when I started after I hurt my knee and I came back, I started competing NASCA stage, like where you start, against, with and a lot of martial art people, which will happen to be on the show. But every time, either I would go to the tournaments and I would come back and always show my mom like the videos, like, yeah, this is what I did here, or if she would come with as well, because as I got older, sometimes I would go on my own with other people or groups of people. And it was always a thing that I would go and show her. It's like, yeah, this wasn't my best, this, that. It was always a thing we talked about, and and of course, I was in a household where it was, just my mother, my sisters. I knew my dad, and he would visit, and great relationship with my dad. It's just different. So it just happened to be that, as when she did pass, and it was very sudden. She ended up having lung cancer, and then had a traveled to the brain, and then she had not an autopsy, but a biopsy
Biopsy.
surgery.
Yeah.
And that's the surgery where it actually pretty much she passed from that about 2 weeks later. So it was very like fast and abrupt. We found out in December, and then all of a sudden everything was kind of weird after that. As in yeah, I had no motivation to do anything. I had just like within February landed a job doing repairs in resorts and stuff like that. And that's all I was doing. And then that's when everything was still kind of on the downhill, like no motivation for anything. I had gotten far more out of shape. I could still actually do the flips. I could still do stuff, but I ended up getting over 200 pounds at 5'7", which is ridiculous. Too much, right? I even did a little flip outside of the store, not the store, out of our office. And one of the managers came out and she was like, she got scared because she didn't think I could do something, like she thought I was gonna bust, so I was gonna fall. No, but I did it fine. It's just, but I was nowhere near in the shape at the level that I used to be at, and I had no motivation to do any of that. And it wasn't until towards the ending of that year, like towards the very, very end of 2020, where I started training. I started training somebody, privately, like with nunchucks, a kid, 10-year-old kid. And I was like, huh. And his name is Zeke Gomez. Now he's 15 and he is a monster with nunchucks. He's um, one of the best in the circuit right now with nunchucks. So shout out to Zeke Gomez. But I started training him, and as I start training him, I start to get like the fire back. And then towards the beginning of next year, I go to visit Mark, and that ignited another fire. And then, from then on, I was like, yep, I'm getting into shape. I started lifting. I started to become faster again, stronger, and then I started to be able to trick again, do like the stuff the way I used to. And then I started teaching a few people, and then I became an instructor there, and then I started competing, and that's how that eventually I swung back and I started to be more. I was coming back up, and learning a lot, growing up a lot, because I had made a lot of uh, decisions that I just needed to keep maturing, as because I was young. I must have been 21, 22, 22, 23. And yeah, I've learned a lot since then. I'm already, very different person by now. I'm 26 now, so I'm still learning. And but during that time frame, that's how I eventually got the fire, and I started to finally become more of my own, like have my own style, more of, I became more innovative. I started throwing both nunchucks in there. I started focusing on real power with my strikes, stuff like that. And yes, and then from there, and then I started to meet some stunt people that happened to be in Florida. They did a lot of the shows in Universal. I was almost gonna apply to do that, and then I had the opportunity to move to Atlanta, and I did that. But yes, that's when it started. and all the tricking, the flips, all that stuff. I mean, I originally was self-taught. Actually, when it comes to that, I actually was self-taught, believe it or not. And as I started to do the recs and the reactions and the falls and all that stuff I think became as a natural because of the tricking. Because I would go outside on the grass and try corks and all this stuff, and I would fall until eventually I'd land it and figure it out. So it was pretty, I guess, familiar to me. So I guess I've been fortunate enough, and of course I continue to train and always learn, uh, from then
Yeah.
on. And
I don't
yeah,
really know anybody on a personal level that does a lot of tricking. And just real quick, can you give like a brief like definition of tricking for those that aren't unfamiliar with it? It's literally like really um I mean
yeah,
not aggressive flips, but like it's like you're
aggra-
contorting your body
you're
and
flipping with aggression, with anger. No,
it's like crooking,
tricking.
but
Yeah, tricking is like it is a freestyle acrobat
mm,
that consists of flips, kicking, and power moves put together. So you can see some tumbling in there. You can tumble. However, tumbling is tumbling, but yes, you can tumble in tricking if you want. Kicking, one of the most important things of tricking, kicking. Lots of kicking. Power moves. You can be jumping off of one foot, doing a backflip, turning, landing, and then throwing a kick. Or even like a butterfly twist. You jump up, it comes like from Mushu, you turn, you land. Some people will throw a round kick out of that. Sometimes you can add variations. You can do an aerial with a twist in it. Much like in my character in the show, actually, I do a triple switch kick, and then I do my A twist, aerial twist, and it's kind of more diagonal, and then I come down with a kick. Mixture of flipping, kicking, and power moves. That's tricking in a nutshell.
yeah.
And it can be done and adapted in so many different ways. And even b-boy, so you can even break dance in there. Like some people,
Right.
it's an art.
I've seen you I've seen you do a flip like off of a bench and you were like in jeans and a boot, but like boots. I'm just like it looked like you just would just walk down the street and get an itch, be like, I'll probably flip off that. Like, do you sounds like you probably do that on a regular basis, maybe?
I used to, and sometimes I still do it. It depends on how I'm feeling, but yeah, actually, that sounds about right. That night I was out with a good friend of mine, and I saw that bench, and I just started gravitating towards that bench, and my friend's like, "Yo!" And then he pulls out his phone, and then he knew what I was gonna do, and I just did the back. I just rocked the boom backflip, and it was just
No,
being,
yeah. It was all
just a fun time.
nonchalant, like no big deal, like let me just stretch real quick and do this flip off the bench. A couple
Yeah.
things before I forget, for the people listening back at home. Mark Cananizato has been mentioned a few times in this interview, but also Justin also name dropped him. For those that like listening to interviews with stunt performers, I did interview Mark back in I believe it was May of 2020. Um, and he doubled for both Ralph and Sholo during his time on Cobra Kai. I remember he shared the story of like that was his foot that Johnny was lighting on fire, and not Miguel's. When he was in the wheelchair, and he's also the one who was Daniel that gets kicked into Johnny's TV at the end of I believe episode 209 or something like that. Um, all right, so I know we kind of like went through like a sort of timeline of your journey. I also understand that you're a pretty big Cobra Kai fan. Like you mentioned your love of like the Karate Kid, but I understand like the characters and not only that, like the moves of characters and but the storylines and stuff like that. So, can you talk about your history with the show Cobra Kai as a fan?
Yeah, as a fan, as it once I saw that first trailer back in 2018, I had heard things the year before of people like it was at a NASCAR tournament, aka Warrior Cup in Chicago. Mike Chat was saying, "Oh yeah, Justin Chang was on Cobra Kai and this and that." I'm like, Cobra Kai. I've heard about this. This is a show." And then people were talking like, "Yep, there's a show where the Karate Kid is like older, and it's about William Billy, about his character and how he starts to train." And I had heard things about it the year before, and then people that I know worked on that show, including from Mark. And I didn't hear any like details. I just know that there was a show. And I was like, "Oh, really?" And then I saw that trailer. I was still in, I believe I was a senior in high school and or a junior in high school. And everybody was like, "Yo, Brandon, look, that's your show. That's your show." And I was like, "Hey, I love that show. And you know what? I actually know people that are on that show." And I was like, "I got to get in this industry. I have to get in this industry." But as I started watching it, I was immediately glued. Like, there's more. I always wanted to know what happened later. And I always thought, you know, Daniel really did come and take the girl like in a lot of ways. Even though they were broken up with, it's like I always figured, I said, yeah, but was he really a bad guy? And on that thought as a fan is like, and people made videos about this. Everybody, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And now there's a whole show about this. And I've heard that they pitched it to Netflix and they didn't want it at first until later on. So then they went to YouTube Red, and I was hooked from then, from day one. And from then on, I just every season I'd watched. And then when I saw that All Valley tournament in was it season one or season two?
Season
The
one, yeah,
first
the
All
first
Valley?
All Valley, the
The
2018
first
one,
All
yeah.
Valley. And I see people that I knew, like even other people that I was like, "Oh, that guy. Oh, that's Justin Chang. Oh, that's Nikki Pelikai. I believe that's his last name." But I met tricked with him before. Like, he's like the guy in the white and black, and he's like doing side flips, almost capoeira stuff. And then I just see all these people that I know, and then it's just pretty insane, actually. And then every season there was somebody that I had recognized that was like somebody fighting, or on the Cobra Kai team where you see a bunch of other kids, like, and I'm like, I know this person, I know that person. That's crazy. This can't be a coincidence. This has to be plausible. Like, I know this has to be like this can't be unrealistic for me to think that I can potentially be on here. And then of course, Mark was like, "Yeah, I'll show you about stunts." Then there was that near miss where I was almost there, but not quite. And then I guess I can talk about how I eventually did get on there. Well, as I moved to Atlanta, I was introduced, believe it or not, by Grandmaster Chung, the ref, and he also double Lewis 10 and chosen, and he did a lot. Like, just he's an incredibly intelligent and one of the best real martial artists I know. Anyway, on a whole nother topic, he introduced me to someone named Danny Boyer. Danny Lee Boyer is the stunt coordinator, and they invited me to a place called Action Craft, and we started training there and training with a bunch of other stunt people, Justin and Paula Ray Taylor, who plays Draga. She ended up meeting me there. I ended up meeting, well, I mean, I knew Justin and a lot of people that I knew. I meet a lot of stunt people, and I learned a lot from the industry, and I'm still learning. I learned a lot from Danny. So then one day, um, as I come in, Don Lee, the fight coordinator of Cobra Kai, was there, because everybody in the stunts, like, they'll know each other. They do projects together. Like, everybody, it's a thing, right? And he introduces me to him, and he's like, "Hey, this is Brandon. He's incredibly, like, he just talked me up so good." And I was like, "Oh, sir, thank you so much." Like, and I met Don Lee, and then he pulled a few of us aside. Justin, Ivan John, who was the double for Kenny, another amazing performer, and myself, and we're all just doing fights. Don's like, "Okay, can you create a fight doing this, this, and this?" And then Don starts creating fights with us, just to see, he's like, "Oh yeah, I like this idea, and I want to do this." And Don, his level of choreography is amazing. The stuff he does, it's all the fights in the show, especially this last season. Like, it's all him. Like, that's insane. I've learned so much from him, and from then on, they were going to get ready to start the season, and he had my information, and he took it, and he was like, "Yeah, that's awesome." And from then on, then the strike happened.
Right.
Then the strike happened, but during that time, I had actually they had Danny had actually made me a coach there as well, alongside like because Justin Ortiz was one of the coaches there, Steven Rodriguez, who was also on the show and as the Redeemer. Nikita, he was on the Russian team. He was one of the coaches. Amazing stunt performers. There's so many to even mention. I can't remember. And then and he actually had made me one, and I was like honored because I'm still new, but I guess it's something like martial arts stuff kicks like we all all of us together train anyway, so it's just something that I was blessed to just you know be a part of that group, and then of course training with lots of stunt people. From then on, the strike is over. Paula Ray Taylor uh is a show maybe even more of a fan than I am, honestly, if I'm being honest. And I know she really wanted to get on the show, and then we were training, we trained a lot. And from then on, with Grandmaster Chung, um, we started just helping out, doing a few other things along the sides, like mopping the floors and doing all of that stuff. And from then on, I got my first whatchamacallit, availability check for January. He's like, "Are you willing to cut your hair?" Because I had long hair, and I was like, "Yes, sir, definitely." So my first day on set, they were gonna cut my hair and everything. I go to the fitting, I do my fitting the first day, and then the second day I come in, and they're like, "We'll put a wig on you," which is good. It worked out in this case because they put a wig on me, they put a suit on me, a big suit, and I actually was the person that doubled
The tour
the
guide.
what is it, the counselor from the college,
He's like a tour
uh,
guide, Andres.
tour
Yeah.
guide.
So you were actually in part one, doubling Alex Lecca and Griffin, who plays Anthony LaRusso. So
Yes,
that's awesome.
correct. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. After that day, I came back and he was like, "Hey, you available for the next few weeks?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." He was like, "Good, you're the Anthony double." And I was like, "What? That is such a blessing," because I thought I would have been done by then. I thought, okay, I guess I was on the show and that's great. But yeah, it was his double, and turns out they kept my hair because I still had the long hair, and my name is Brandon Anthony Caruso. Griffin's
Wow.
character in the show is Anthony LaRusso. And then when we had talked about that, he was like, "What? That is crazy. Like, what? Are you kidding?" So yes, it was fun, and it was fun doubling Anthony because he learned the choreography so quick. He picked up so good. Kenny, as well, because we myself and Ivan John, who was the double, we had worked rehearsed the choreo because Don. Of course, it's all Don. Like he does the fights and everything, and then we rehearse it, and then we show of course, our actors, and they picked up so quick. They did so good. All I had to do was just go off the deck a few times. Like it was
Right.
like that was fun.
Where
Really great
Kenny,
experience.
the sequence where Candy Knock accidentally hits Anthony during the underdogs disqualification or elimination, the narrowing down of the team is where that happens. If you like connections, we've kind of talked about it on this podcast before. Um, the Quan is played by Brandon H. Lee. Uh, People have heard through some of my interviews that uh, Sean Kanan was almost replaced by Bruce Lee's son Brandon Lee in the Karate Kid 3 following a really bad injury. And so Brandon Lee was actually on set, and Sensei William Christopher Ford, who plays Dennis de Guzman, actually met him on set. And so Sean Kanan was able to pull through and keep the role. But all that to say that some people that worked on the Karate Kid Part 3 got to meet both Brandon Lees. So isn't that crazy?
That's that is crazy. That is
Yeah,
really crazy. I also love listening to Brendan Lee's interviews. And that Bruce Lee's son, very intellectual guy, and and then Brandon Lee's also awesome
sure.
because
Yeah.
he's talented, but also just a really cool person.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's awesome. I did not
Still
know
plenty
that.
of
That is,
yeah.
thank you
Um,
for that. A big fan,
sure,
actually.
sure. In episode two of season six, was it actually Josa that tackles you, or was that somebody else that doubled him?
it was stunt double Cannon. He was a football player.
Oh,
And he's like, yeah, I'll just give you a nudge. I was like, awesome. And then Ken, the stunt coordinator again,
Fairfield.
and
Yep.
then Ken Bearfield again. The just it, we I don't know how they do it. Ken and Don they do amazing. Ken he was like, yeah, we'll put a pad there. We'll probably have a pad there and everything. And then they had this shot. They changed it to the back shot where you see the floor and everything. And he was like, oh, it's gonna be on concrete. Have fun. And I was like, yes, sir. But to me it's pretty just a simple side fall. So I just let him check. Boom. I have the clipboard, covers my face, everything just and they did one take and that was it.
Oh, awesome.
That was it, just one take. And he was like, okay, good. Good job. Amazing. You can go home. And I was like, well, yes, sir. I can go help out at the dojo, the stunt dojo if you have. He's like, yeah, absolutely, yes. And then that's when he came and asked if I was available for a little longer. And then after we were getting ready for part two, they were like, we're reading the scripts and we're looking at like all the fight sequences and all the characters and there was this big board and I don't it's not I don't know much about it, just a whole lots of names, potential, all the teams, and we're just
We've
thinking
seen
about
pictures.
people. Oh, you've seen pictures of the board.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's been shared, and we're like, wow, that's a lot of there's a lot of writing, and the writing is really small.
Yes, and it changed millions and millions of times. And my name had changed a couple times and yeah, just I had the opportunity because I know Justin and Jules, they were on the Spain team. Well, they're the captains on the Spain team. And we're reading the script, and there's this character named Animal, a growling Pantera. Animal comes in like Wolverine. He's growling and moving like Wolverine. Uh, and he's like he's not like he doesn't talk. He's just grunting, yelling, like all that stuff. And he fatigues Hawk, and then Hawk's like he doesn't know who to tag, and then he tags Robbie instead of Kenny. And then they looked at me, and all for some reason they looked at me, and Don was like, Brandon, can you be mean? I was like, yes, sir. And it's like, good. And then they send my pictures in, and I got approved that I could be Animal. Uh, and I actually, out of all the characters, I read that one. I was like, that would be really cool. So they put me on the board for that character, and I've just been blessed to say. And Don, you know, he's again, I've learned so much from him. Everything when it comes to film, like, and I'm still learning. But Don Lee had he makes the fights. He's the fight coordinator, and he helps us and he guides us. He said, "Hey, I want you to do this, this, and this," and then he like tweaks everything, and he gets it like just right. And he was like, "You know what, Brandon? Because I asked him if we could potentially, if I could potentially make the choreo or some ideas," and he's like, "Yeah, make it your own. Do some ideas." And I just got some ideas, and on a weekend, Paula and I, we both did it for her fight and my fight. We just had some ideas. We showed Don. He's like, I like this idea. I like this idea. And then he like tweaked it and did, because, again, he made it like so much better. He like did this thing. He's like, why don't you go down on your knees? Why don't you look like a beast? Like if you're, just something new, something different that they don't see. And yeah, he had it. He did these creative elements that's going to make it more memorable. And I learned that, and it was a really amazing time. Remembering that what he did and everything. I wanted to do like some of the flips and the kicks, and it says he sweeps Robbie and then punches him. And I was like, I didn't just want to sweep and punch him. I wanted to do a crazy sweep into some crazy punch. And I remember Karate Kid 2010, where the guy comes up. I believe it's the main bad kid and the Mohawk kid. And he like comes up and he jumps up and he spins and he goes punch, but he misses. The guy rolls out the way, right? And I had that idea. I was like, why don't I do that? And then later on, I was like, what if I add an extra spin in it? And then I did that. So when I swept him, I did a sweep into a starfish kip up. And I did that so many times, I was getting so dizzy and sore. Into one of the takes, I even fell. And I was like, oh, no. And anyway, then they got it where it was both in there. But then on the final cut, you actually they don't show this. They don't even show the way I swept him. They didn't even show it. So I was like, oh, I could have just did a regular sweep, and it would have been easier. But the cool thing is it's all thanks to Don that I was able to have a moment in the show. Like I didn't think that was possible, but going from almost being on the show to actually like being on the show, it's been a great process to say the least. And
Yeah.
along the way, people like Grandmaster Chung, I learned a lot from him. If it wasn't for him, like I wouldn't have uh, known what I've like known. There's so much more. If it wasn't for Don Lee, that the way he doesn't just know how to make the fights, he puts it in the environments. He does so much. Ken Bearfield for getting organizing everything. He's the man. Like that's like I learned so much from all of them, and there it's amazing. And from then on, the core team was I was not the core team, but the core team that were there, they're amazing. Craig Henningsen, who was the double for Ralph and Cholo for this season, uh, uh, Christina Basket, Michelle Adams, Matt Mullins, all those like they're
Yeah.
incredible performers, and there's so many people to mention that I don't even know who I'm gonna like not remember. People that I known for many years that in the sport karate world, like people like Haley Glass. She used to train. We used to train at the same dojo back in Florida. It all comes back full circle. Alex Mancias, and again in the competition world too. Um,
And he was
there's so many
he was on the West End Warriors. Uh
Western Warriors.
yeah.
Yes,
And
him and Haley Glass.
Haley, her character fought Rita. Was it her?
Yes,
Yeah, with the
yes.
bows. Yeah, bow staff.
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
I'm
And
learning. I'm learning.
the cool thing about Haley in that scene was that she most people do bow staff there's many different martial arts and styles of bow staff, but like for the sport karate world, the way we particularly do bow staff and perform with it, most people have the right hand on top, left hand on bottom, opposite grips, right? And that's most people. Now, I'm weird. I actually do it the other way if I do bow. And I wasn't like a bow guy, but if I do bow, I would usually do it here. But I could do either side, right? The person that was drilling the bows was actually Cole Edgar, and he knew to do the bow, but he does bow both sides actually. And this particular choreography had the left hand on top. And Haley came in and had to learn, okay, she had to do it on the other side, and she did it. And that's a little cool piece trivia there that she had to learn to do it on the other side and still do choreo in timing, and it was great. Um, just yes, there's just lots of little trivia like that. So much
Yeah.
cool stuff. The main actors like Reino was already martial artist, moves very well, incredibly well, and Brandon Lee. Again, he out of the like after the takes and stuff like that. If there's not really like there's downtime, but if there's time where we're like anytime he would speak, he talks about all the details, like the stuff that he like licensed the choreographer's like, yeah, when I'm gonna do the nine here, and he knows camera angles, he knows action, and he knows like his kicks are great. And that's why I was excited to see like the fight with Quan and Diego because the one that Justin who plays Diego in the sport karate world, sport martial art world is known for his kicks. His nickname was Hot Foot because his foot, like he uses his foot like really well, and he kicks great, amazing. And then Brandon Lee, a different kind of kicker, more Korean style. It would and we did get some really cool moments. I just wish there was more of the fight. It's just they just need this part and that's it. And I was like, okay, well, at least I saw more of what the fight would have been. It would have been pretty cool. You know, hopefully I'm not saying too much. I don't know if I am or not.
No, no, it's totally fine. As we get ready to wrap up, it sounds like you're like the epitome of like this like student of the game. You digest this quite differently from like a lot of the people I speak with. Not to take anything from them, but like the way I can sense the passion that you have for what this is, for what you've done, and it sounds like you don't take for granted the opportunity that you got to be on Cobra Kai. I heard you were mopping mats daily. Like this is not something that was asked of you. You took it upon yourself, like took the initiative to do that. Um, but I don't want to reveal who, but I've been told that somebody views you as your skills is invaluable, and that they believe you were the most underrated stunt performer on the show.
Oh, wow. That's amazing to hear.
Someone close
Wow.
to you. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to reveal names, but
Who's close
because
to me?
yeah, so little of you. I had to reach out to somebody that might know you a little bit more to kind of give me some talking points, kind of deal. So um,
Wow.
yeah,
Amazing. That means a lot. It really does.
yeah. So I know you teach, and so is there any sort of like tips, some advice that you can give to somebody that was once wearing your shoes, and that wants to train hard and find a path into the industry?
Tips. You know, it's one thing to want to know the best optimal thing to do, way to train, what to do, exact decisions to make. What I'm learning now is once you understand kind of the line and where to go, just stay consistent and chisel and make it better from there. If there's a sculpture, you chip at it and make it more refined over time, but you have to do it. One thing about me is that I remember there was a lot of periods in my life where I had maybe had become complacent and stagnant in analysis through paralysis because I was such a perfectionist. I'd be like, I don't want to do that. I think just start doing it and train and just when you have the guidance, go with it. This and from then on, stay consistent. Consistency is key over perfection, and then you'll become far better. You'll achieve far better results and things in life in general. I believe from that, staying humble and uh, doing what you know that you need to do, and then you'll get better over time to chip away at it. Um, so that's what I would say. Having a good foundation, all that stuff is important. But yeah, martial arts in general in life, you could say that's what I've learned so far, and that's what I'm doing now. To say that, I guess that would be my advice. Hopefully, it's okay.